anticipation of a French invasion, Fort Charlotte was built in 1788 by Lord Dunmore. A portrait of Lord Dunmore found online at Bahamianology.com states that beginning with Woodes Rogers, one thing can be said of most, if not all, of the early colonial governors. They came to the Bahama Islands to make money. Why else would men leave the security of England or some comfortable appointment in the New Americas to come to a tiny rock like New Providence? Other than yellow fever, typhoid outbreaks, slave problems, constant threats of Spanish invasion, and disagreeable colonialists, there wasn't very much to the early Bahamas except for the one thing nature wasn't making any more of: land. Just 2 years after Dunmore arrived, the inhabitants were writing to England to have him recalled.
Fresh vegetable, fresh vegetable, fresh vegetable.
In 1789, Bahama's inhabitants have come to despise their obstinate and violent Governor Dunmore.
Bread here.
From a Bahama paper of July 29, it reads, "The character of this nobleman is so generally known that it is almost superfluous to give it here, obstinate and violent by nature, of a capacity below mediocrity, and little cultivated by education, ignorant of the Constitution of England and of the rights of British subjects. His principles of government are such as might naturally be expected from the lordly despot of a petty clan. Nor is his private life by any means less reprehensible than his public character. To descend to particular instances where his arbitrary and ungovernable temper has overleaped all the bounds of law, justice, and common decency would be exceeding the intention of this publication, and is further prevented by regard to the feelings of his amiable family and noble connections." The ruddy-faced, red-haired Governor Dunmore could have cared less who didn't like him. He did as he wanted, and in 1791, he wanted Hog Island. Dunmore was a loyalist who, like others loyal to the crown during the American War of Independence, lost considerable property and money when they had to abandon the United States. Perhaps Dunmore felt he was entitled to the land due to the losses he incurred in the Americas. Dunmore took Hog Island, then told everyone to get their belongings off of it. He would use the law to prosecute them. The Scotsman didn't mince words with his notice in the local paper in 1791. It read, "Notice is hereby given that the Earl of Dunmore is now proprietor of the whole of Hog Island except 30 acres belonging to Mr. Russell, the shipbuilder. His lordship having informed that some people have stock on the island and that others cut wood and grass. This is to declare that the former will remove their stock before the 1st of June and that the latter will desist immediately from cutting wood. Persons offending may be assured of being prosecuted against as the law directs." May 20th, 1791. England, however, apparently gets Dunmore's Bahamas land back in a clever way. Dunmore must have struck a deal with Parliament in London when he was due to retire. In order for Dunmore to receive his pension, he had to relinquish certain lands in the Bahamas. One of these lands may have been the whole of Hog Island, which he took sometime in 1791. Governor Dunmore died on February 23, 1809, in Ramsgate in Kent, England, at the age of 79. As stated, Fort Charlotte was built by Lord Dunmore and was named after the wife of King George III, Queen Saharia Charlotte. The middle bastion, Fort Stanley, and the western portion, Fort D'Arcy, were added later. The fort has a moat, dungeons, underground passages, and 42 cannons which have never been fired in an act of aggression. The fort is actually comprised of three distinct forts: Fort Charlotte to the east, Fort Stanley to the center, and Fort D'Arcy to the west. The fort was made up of limestone by the hands of slaves. It is also believed that both men and women were involved in building Fort Charlotte, both black and white, free and slaves. A dry moat surrounds Fort Charlotte and is spanned by a wooden bridge on the north side. The forts and military installations in New Providence and throughout the Bahamas formed such an insurmountable defense system that potential invaders were discouraged, and as a result, these forts never fired a gun in battle. The fort has a drawbridge, which you can tell by the groove marks on both sides of the wall. There are many inscriptions on the wall made by soldiers who saw no action and at times had nothing to do. Many soldiers died because they had poor ventilation and malaria from mosquito bites. An escape hole was their only ventilation, and sleeping quarters held up to 40 soldiers. There was a room for storing ammunition where a few soldiers slept as well. Gunpowder was stored in big barrels, and water was stored in smaller barrels. Jars like the soldiers used to drink whiskey from for peace of mind are on display. Soldiers played an African game called the Mancala Games, a board game played with small stones, beans, or seeds and rows of holes or pits in the earth, a board or other playing surface. The soldiers laid in waiting, but the French never came. This 18th century military complex is located on a high ridge running parallel to West Bay Street. Its elevated portion offers stunning views of Nassau Harbor. The fort is within walking distance from downtown Nassau and a short 15 to 20-minute cab drive from most major resorts on the island. Preserve your family history with a video biography. Ask your parents and grandparents to tell the story of their lives. A personal history is a priceless gift for family, friends, and generations to come. Contact Barbara Wilson at 457-3188.